Hello. Yes, I'm about 13 minutes late this morning, but it's a absolutely beautiful, beautiful, windy day, probably in the low 70s or even high 60s. We had a cool night. This is pretty comfortable after like 5 straight days of over 110, and it actually got to 123 or 122 in our backyard. So Sacramento is experiencing a chilly, wonderfully chilly morning. Anyway, sorry I'm a little bit late. Of course, it's Tuesday and Parking Lot Tuesday. I ran across something that I'm positive, I'm not sure when. I tried to look it up on Facebook. I've shared this with you before, or at least part of it or sections of it. But it makes a couple points that I wanted to make today, and so I dug it up and found it. And as I was reading through it, it just all looked so good that I thought I'd share it with you today. I'm sure some of you have heard this before, and if you were in the OTO in 1999 and at the Ordo Templi Orientis National Convention, I believe it was in Portland that year, you heard me deliver this message in person. And the title of it is, I didn't write the title down, but it was something like Survival in a Non-Thelemic World, or How to Be a Thelemite in a Non-Thelemic World, or something like that. It was an ill-conceived title, and probably an ill-conceived speech. But anyway, here it is. And of course, I had little slides that went with it, and where I can, I will tell you what the slide said. And the first slide was a little poem of mine that says, "Everything I say is untrue, though true I try to make it. No sooner the words escape my mouth would I had never spake it." Okay. First of all, let me apologize for the title of this talk, especially my use of the term non-Thelemic world. It's terribly misleading. In my opinion, on March 20th, 1904, the world turned Thelemic and is now just waiting for the rest of us to catch up. Even though the Book of the Law tells us, quote, "Therefore the kings of the earth shall be kings forever, the slaves shall serve," unquote. I don't believe that we can simply divide the human race between those who have confessed with their mouths that they have accepted the law of Thelema and those who have not. I don't believe, as some people do, that we are at the present moment in history locked in a them against us struggle for dominion of the world. If that's the case, we're in terrible shape, because quite frankly, there is still far too much themness in each of us who consider ourselves Thelemites. And surprisingly, a large amount of Thelema-ness lurking just beneath the skins of many of those who we would call them. How's that for English? My point is, Thelemites are everywhere. Quote, "It may be that yonder beggar is a king. A king may choose his garment as he will. There is no certain test. But a beggar cannot hide his poverty," unquote. Obviously, there are many things that the Thelemites in this room have in common with one another, and many things we don't have in common with the other people we rub elbows with every day. For example, most people in this room have identical libraries. We know how to correctly pronounce the word Crowley. Nearly all of us delight in tormenting Jehovah's Witnesses. Most of us own at least one black robe. The first thing most of us think about when we see the Washington Monument is not George Washington. Most of us have at least one relative who thinks we're going to hell. Most of us do not own a new car. Most of us never top off our gas tank. Most of us own at least one obscene t-shirt. Most of us say will and resh when there are other Thelemites present, and don't when they are not. Also, most of us avail ourselves of the magical teachings, techniques, and disciplines of our prophet, and we embrace in our own way and according to our own understanding a pantheon of exotic deities that personify the great cosmic facts of life. Of course, these things in and of themselves do not make us Thelemites. What differentiates us from our non-Thelemic neighbors is not the way we look, or where we live, or where we work, or how much money, or how we make, or how we vote, or how we love. What separates us from the rest of humanity is a simple variance in attitude. And here it is. As Thelemites, we focus our spiritual attention upon ourselves instead of a deity. We seek to discover and accomplish our own will rather than the will of some god. This subtle shift of attention is what profoundly distinguishes us from the rest of humanity. And the person who has made this shift is a Thelemite. Whether or not he or she has ever read the Book of the Law or heard about Aleister Crowley or the Beast 666 or the OTO. It doesn't even matter what religion a person may think he or she is. One either is or is not a Thelemite. For example, very few people who consider themselves Christians care enough about the specific articles of their faith or are spiritually committed enough to actually qualify as Christians. Forget labels. As long as a person is focusing their spiritual attention upon themselves rather than a deity, as long as a person is driven to discover and accomplish their own will rather than wasting time trying to figure out their place in the will of some mythical god, then in the purest sense of the word, he or she is already a Thelemite. On the other hand, even though I consider myself a Thelemite and practice all the rituals of Thelemic magic, even though I may slash my chest open every sunset, say Will at McDonald's and Resh on the subway, even though I may pass out copies of Liber L at concerts and talk with Art Bell on the radio, even though I say Apopantos Kakodominos every time I see a nun, and even though I'm a bigwig in the OTO, if I am not truly focusing my energies toward discovering my will and then doing it, then I am not a Thelemite. Which brings me to my second point. Thelemites can be discovered anywhere. Quote, let my servants be few and secret, they shall rule the many and the known, unquote. Now, I'm sure we all consider ourselves among the servants few and secret, who would rule the many and the known. But how many of us in our daily lives really do rule the many and the known, secretly or otherwise? Certainly not I. Now remember, this is back in 1999, and I believe I was still working at, I was an office manager at a stock brokerage firm. Yes. Can you say irony? Okay. Each day I go to work and find myself getting royally ruled by a few and sometimes secret hierarchy of individuals of means who seem to be doing far better job than I at trampling on low men, dressing in fine apparel and eating rich foods and drinking sweet wines, and if the office gossip is accurate, love as they will, when, where, and whom they will. More importantly, these insensitive jackasses and prick-teasing prima donnas pose a one-pointed and unambiguous will to amass at least $1 million before the end of the year, and many of them are going to accomplish their wills. They may call themselves Christians or Jews or atheists, but they're not. God, their God, is money. And they serve and worship their deity with devotion and passion that would put St. Francis to shame. What's wrong with this picture? Are these people I should look down my spiritual nose upon just because their dynamic wills are currently focused on such a shallow and unspiritual goal as the accumulation of great wealth? Probably like everyone else in this room, I've dedicated my life to do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I talk about it all the time. But these jerks, without caring anything about the law of Thelema, or the book of the law, or the Hebrew Kabbalah, or tarot cards, or Enochian aethers, these assholes actually seem to be doing what they wilt. Without ever reading the 3rd chapter, they've latched onto its essence with a vengeance and are tearing us all new ones. Now, I'm not suggesting that every workaholic, starched shirt, loud-mouth, cuff-linked, over-cologned, yuppie bastard laptop, Mont Blanc, greedy, call my broker, I need you to stay late, put me on hold, my people will call your people, condo landlord, client churning, land raping, sorry you've been downsized, backstabbing, union busting, over moose, perfume reeking, fur wrapped, Starbucks clutching, cell phone, fascist country club Nazi is a better Thelemite than I, just because he or she drives an Infinity and orders people around all day. But we should not ignore the obvious fact that individuals like this, some of whom are actually rather cool people. Some people like this because of their own natural inclinations and force and fire-charged environment of the new Aeon of Horus, are already exercising aspects of personal power, already focusing their wills already striking hard and low and assuming blatantly thelemic attitudes and manifesting classic thelemic aspects of characters far more effectively than I. It doesn't matter if they call themselves Christians or atheists. They don't have a clue what those words mean. It doesn't matter right now if they vote Republican or suck Pat Robertson's dick. These are proto-Thelemites who deserve our attention as much or perhaps more than members of the various modern spiritual and social subcultures. Wouldn't it be nice if even a tiny percentage of these assholes could become aware that there is a name for what they are? Not a name for what they believe, but a name for what they are. Wouldn't it be nice if this awareness blossomed into an interest in what is formerly known as Thelema? Wouldn't it be nice if they then focused a portion of their tremendous talent and energy of will toward their own enlightenment and the liberation of others? Wouldn't it be nice if they then channeled their energy and resources to help support their local lodge, the order, and the worldwide Thelemic movement? Which leads me to my third point, which is a question. How do we reach out to assholes and other proto-Thelemites with the glad word of Thelema? Before we try to answer that, it'll be well for us to remember that it's not everyone's will to be a Thelemic ambassador. As a matter of fact, I would strongly advise anyone who has an overwhelming desire to bring others into the fold to thoroughly examine their motives. Missionary zeal is a mask often worn by the most insecure devotee. Quote, argue not, convert not, talk not overmuch, unquote. Thelemites do not proselytize, but we are instructed, quote, to look forth upon men to tell them this glad word, unquote. If it's your will to be the bearer of the glad word to others, how do you go about doing it without proselytizing? The Thelemic outreach must be very subtle because you don't work on other people, you work on yourself. As in magic and all other aspects of your life, you've only yourself to work with. Quote, O be thou proud and mighty among men, lift up thyself, for there is none like unto thee among men or among gods. Unquote. The strength of your character is the most powerful weapon you possess. Your other weapons are your wisdom, your sense of humor, your peace of mind, your relative happiness, your emotional stability. Use the 4 powers of the Sphinx, Luke. No. You must first of all know who you are. You must be confident and comfortable with your life as a Thelemite and your self-identity as such. Will. You must will to be happy. Dare. You must dare to create a rich quality of life no matter how modest your resources may be. Like a carrier of typhoid, you must share your happiness and your unique life with those around you. Your family, your friends, your co-workers, and believe it or not, your community. Silence. Finally, you should cultivate the self-control necessary to keep silent concerning philosophical or spiritual matters until such a time that others around you are prepared to respect anything you say. How can you get people to respect anything you say? Not by making them think that you know more than they know, by making them realize, if only subconsciously, that you are something more than they are. In the early 1970s, I was privileged to study for a time in Hollywood with the great method acting coach Lee Strasberg. The theory of the Stanislavski method is, in essence, very simple. In order for an actor's performance to be convincing, something truthful must be going on in the actor's mind. It can be anything going on inside it. It doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with the play or the dialogue or even the character's emotional condition. Any emotional truth must be engaging the actor's inner life. And the truth of that engagement is visible to the soul eyes of the audience, who will recognize the generic truth when they see it. The audience then does the hard work. The audience then interprets that truth and projects it upon the specific context of the play and the actor's character. Now, the supreme something that should be going on inside you is the consciousness of your own will. It's the ultimate truth that can engage your inner life. When you are focused on your will, your audience of friends, co-workers, and community will see that primitive, generic truth with their soul eyes and prepare themselves to receive a message of truth through everything you say and do. Does this make sense? Now, I've never consciously targeted anyone for Thelema assassination, but over the years I've introduced a great many people to Thelema. Some of them have gone hog wild like the rest of us and joined the OTO. Others have just gone crazy. Most of them have simply grown a little in self-realization and tolerance. In both cases, I think the world is better and the Thelemic environment because of their conversion. No two Thelemite or Thelemic ambassadors can operate in exactly the same manner. Each of us is a unique work and has unique work in recreational environments. For many years, I worked at a modest 9-to-5 office job, but I think that many of the things I'm about to suggest could apply just about to any of us. And these are bullet points here. First of all, broaden your sphere of influence. Cultivate non-Thelemic, non-magical friends. If you're afraid that their non-Thelemicness will rub off on you, then you are presently not cut out for ambassadorship. 2. Do non-Thelemic, non-magical things with them. Carpool to work, go to lunch with the gang, go to movies or concerts or sports events. You'd be surprised to find out how many things you have in common with troglodytes. Be active in non-Thelemic clubs and associations. The most obvious are things like the SCA, Society Creative Anachronism, or various tarot or pagan societies. Don't be afraid to really branch out. If you love to read, attend the discussion groups organized by libraries and bookstores. If you love herbs, join the Royal Society of Herbalists or any of the gatherings sponsored by your local health food store. If you're a vegetarian, find out or organize a vegetarian club. If you love movies, join a critics club. If you love music, take lessons or join a band. If you love to dance, take dance lessons. You see where I'm going with this? There are many worlds out there that have nothing directly to do with Thelema or magic or Crowley that you can be an active and productive citizen of. Enjoy yourself, but be warned. Because you're a Thelemite, you're likely to end up ruling some of those worlds. Quote, they shall rule the many and the known, unquote. Once you've broadened your sphere of influence, what do you do next? Quote, lurk, withdraw upon them. Success is thy proof, unquote. I know you might believe the Book of the Law instructs us to pass out copies of Liberal to everyone we're having dinner or drinks with, but you might want to pause and consider whether or not anyone is going to seriously examine your philosophy and beliefs if they think you are a nut. So I suggest, except on rare occasions, you don't wear your Thelema on your sleeve. Remember how you hate it when Christians rub your nose in the fact that they're Christians. Now, what I'm about to say will probably sound unbelievably egotistical and manipulative. And it is. But it's the best way I know to bring assholes and other non-Thelemites to a place where they happily accept, if it be their wills, and embrace your blasphemous and bizarre philosophy without batting an eyelash. I have what I call my 7 barefaced manipulations, which seem to come naturally to my Cancerian Queen of Cups personality. Barefaced manipulation number 1. Let people get to know you. It sounds simple, but for many of us, it's very hard to reveal ourselves to others. It should get easier as you grow older. Barefaced manipulation number 2. Try to be pleasant, even around people you think are complete idiots. It's not only a good ploy, it makes you feel good too. Barefaced manipulation number 3. Don't be afraid of small talk. For most people, it's the only kind of talk they know. You have plenty in common with most everybody. You might even learn something. Talk about kids, the weather, TV shows, movies. Stay clear of religion and politics. Don't tip your hand too early. Barefaced manipulation number 4. Listen to people. Find out about them. Ask them questions about themselves. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. Let them ramble on. The more they talk about themselves, the more they think they understand about you. I don't know why that is. It just works that way. Barefaced manipulation number 5. Lull them into thinking you agree with them on just about everything. It's tricky, but you can do this without being too dishonest. You mainly have to know when to keep your mouth shut and change the subject. When people believe you agree with them about everything, they'll think you're a genius. They'll soon drop their defenses and take your unwavering wisdom for granted. After all, you think just like they do. Barefaced manipulation number 6. If the subject of religion comes up, let them do all the talking at first. When you do start responding, do so, if possible, as if you were speaking from within the context of their belief system. It's ideal if you can make them think that perhaps you come from the same religious background they do. For example, if they're Christian and you were raised Protestant or Catholic, you can share little anecdotes of your experiences. Barefaced manipulation number 7. After you've laid the groundwork, maybe for months, after people are comfortable with you, after they expect to be tickled by almost anything you say, after you've lurked and withdrawn, and lurked and withdrawn, then upon them. Stepping out of the closet is the most fun thing in the world, but you have to look for the perfect moment, and you most likely will not want to come completely out at first. Here's an example of something I've done at the office when I know the time is right. I've doodled a few things in Hebrew and left them lying around. The question will inevitably arise, Lon, are you Jewish? No, I reply, I'm Gnostic Catholic. I know a little Hebrew from my study of Hebrew mysticism. And then I change the subject and let them chew on that. Now, if you've laid your groundwork well, you've got them. Nobody is likely to know what a Gnostic Catholic is, but it sure sounds like a real heavy church unless you're working around some pretty Orthodox Jews. Nobody is likely to know much about Hebrew either. And for the study of Hebrew mysticism, you can be sure you're the only kid on the block with that toy. All of a sudden, you will have transformed yourself into the eyes of your colleagues from a pleasant coworker to someone who takes religion quite seriously, someone who studies, someone whose grasp of spiritual reality perhaps dwarfs their own, perhaps someone who may, just maybe, may help them find what they've always been afraid to look for. Then withdraw. Don't rub it in. Don't come completely out of the closet. Withdraw to being a pleasant comrade and employee. Field any questions they may have honestly, but make no moves to offer more information than is necessary. It's best if they subtly feel at first it might be impossible for them to ever penetrate your spiritual world. Refuse good-naturedly to be drawn into any kind of doctrinal debate. If they insist, tell them that your religion doesn't proselytize or attempt to gain new members. That gets them every time. It's good to remember that there are very many people who could happily embrace the law of Thelema without ever becoming interested in magic or the Kabbalah or the secret of the 9th degree. All that is preventing them from declaring to the world that there is no law beyond do what thou wilt is the fact that they've been so busy mastering their wills that they haven't had time to notice There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. They're just going through life doing their wills and waiting for some observant person like you or me to have the courage to approach them and say, you know, there's a name for what you are. You're a Thelemite. Do you know what that is? Well, I know that's a pretty long session for the car, but that's it for today. I hope that you weren't too inconvenienced by me being late this morning, but Constance will be coming out of the Sprouts Farmers Market in just a few moments, so we'll call this a day. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.